The coffee in Dr. Elena Santos's mug had long gone cold, but she barely noticed as she stared at the readouts flooding her holographic display. Europa Station's sensors were picking up something impossible, an object larger than Earth's moon, decelerating from faster-than-light travel directly into Jupiter's orbit. Dr. Santos, you need to see this. Sarah Chin, her research assistant, pressed a tablet into her hands. The object, it's changing shape. Elena watched as the massive structure unfolded like an origami flower, revealing spires and towers that seemed to defy physics. Her first thought wasn't of fear or wonder, but of validation. She'd spent her career arguing that advanced civilizations would likely transcend our understanding of engineering. Now, floating in Jupiter's orbit was proof. "Get me a line to Earth Command," Elena said, her voice steadier than she felt. "And wake up the rest of the xenobiology team." Before Sarah could respond, every screen in the laboratory flickered. The station's AI assistant went silent mid-announcement. Elena felt the subtle shift in the air as the life support systems hiccuped, then resumed with a different rhythm. A voice filled the station, speaking perfect English, but with harmonics that made Elena's teeth ache. "We are the Vextari. Your species has been observed, evaluated, and found wanting. Submit to integration into our empire or face extinction. You have 6 Earth hours to respond." Elena's first reaction was to laugh, not out of humor, but from the sheer absurdity of it all. Humanity's first contact with an alien civilization, and they were already following the colonial playbook that had caused so much suffering on Earth. "Ma'am?" Sarah's voice quivered. "Earth Command is, they're not responding. Nothing's getting through." Elena looked at her team, now gathering in the laboratory, their faces pale but determined. She thought of the artifacts they'd been studying, the strange bacterial colonies in Europa's subsurface ocean that seemed to communicate through quantum entanglement. The very discovery that had brought her to this station. "They can block our communications," Elena said, "but they don't understand what we've learned here." She turned to her team. "The Vextari think they're following a script: find primitive species, demonstrate overwhelming power, demand submission. But they've made 3 critical mistakes." She held up one finger. "First, they assumed we'd respond like every other species they've encountered." A second finger joined the first. "Second, they're broadcasting in English, which means they're processing our languages through their systems." Her final finger raised. "And third, they don't know about the quantum bacteria." Dr. Marcus Rivera, her colleague in computational xenobiology, caught on first. "The bacteria's communication method, it's completely outside normal spacetime. If we could adapt our findings, we could piggyback a signal through their blockade," Elena finished. "But we need to do more than just call for help. We need to show them why humanity doesn't fit their categories." The next 6 hours became a blur of activity. While Earth's political leaders presumably debated surrender terms, Elena's team worked on something far more ambitious. They'd spent months studying how the Europa bacteria created quantum links that seemed to ignore traditional physics. Now they were going to attempt something that looked, on paper, like pure science fiction. 5 hours and 45 minutes after the ultimatum, Elena initiated their program. She'd expected resistance from her team about the risks, but they all understood the stakes. If they failed, humanity would either become slaves or face extinction. The only choice was to try something so unexpected it might work. "Broadcasting now," Sarah announced, her fingers dancing across the control panel. "The quantum signal is stable. It's working." Elena watched as their message propagated through the bacterial network, using the very fabric of spacetime as its medium. But they weren't just sending a warning to Earth. Hidden in the transmission was a virus of sorts, one that would use the Vextari's own translation systems against them. The station shuddered as the massive alien ship moved closer. Elena couldn't help but admire its beauty. It looked like liquid metal and starlight had been woven together by artists who'd mastered gravity itself. With 15 minutes remaining, the Vextari spoke again. "Your time draws to a close. We detect attempts at resistance. This is unexpected, but futile." Elena smiled. "Actually," she said aloud, knowing they were listening, I think you'll find humanity is full of unexpected things. For instance, did you know we have a word for species like yours? We call them bullies. And humanity has a long history of dealing with bullies. She nodded to Sarah, who activated the final sequence. The quantum signal peaked, and for a moment, Elena feared their calculations had been wrong. Then every system on the station went dark. When the lights returned 30 seconds later, the Vextari ship was still there, but it was silent. Their virus, carried through the quantum network and into their translation systems, had done its work. The mighty empire had just discovered that humanity's first response to their ultimatum wasn't surrender or defiance. It was to hack their systems using principles they didn't even know existed. As Elena waited for their response, she thought about how the Vextari had dismissed humanity as primitive. They'd never considered that a species might take their own technology and use it in ways they'd never imagined. They'd never considered that true intelligence wasn't about power or technology. It was about creativity, adaptation, and the willingness to try the impossible. The next transmission from the Vextari ship was different. Gone were the harmonic overtones of superiority. Instead, there was something that sounded almost like respect. What are you? Elena's response was simple: we're human. And we're just getting started. The Vextari's cultural exchange program looked suspiciously like an occupation. 3 months after first contact, their crystalline towers rose from Earth's major cities like silver thorns, each one housing what they called technological advisors. Dr. Elena Santos watched them construct another one outside Europa Station's main viewport, its surface reflecting Jupiter's eternal storms. They're watching us rebuild their translator, James Chen said quietly, his fingers moving across the quantum interface they'd salvaged from their first confrontation. Unlike his sister Sarah, who'd been evacuated back to Earth, James had chosen to stay. They think we're just copying their design. They have no idea. Elena nodded, keeping her expression neutral for the benefit of the Vextari observer floating outside the station. The aliens had learned to be more subtle after their initial approach, but their arrogance remained. They genuinely believed humans were simply replicating their superior technology, not understanding it. Show me, she said, stepping closer to examine James's work. The interface looked exactly like the Vextari original, down to the molecular level. But embedded within its quantum architecture was something new, something that existed in the spaces between normal spacetime, just like the bacteria they'd discovered in Europa's oceans. We're calling it the silencer, James explained, his voice barely a whisper. Every piece of technology they've given us, every gift, to help uplift our primitive species, we've modified them all. The changes are hidden in quantum states they don't even know exist. Elena remembered the day the Vextari had first demonstrated their technological superiority. They'd casually cured several human diseases, solved the energy crisis, and shown humans glimpses of faster-than-light travel. All gifts came with strings attached. Humanity would join their empire, accept their guidance, and, most importantly, follow their rules. What the Vextari hadn't counted on was humanity's capacity for reverse engineering and improvisation. Dr. Santos, the station's AI, announced, "Ambassador Vexthal requests your presence in the observation deck." Elena straightened her uniform. "Time to play our part," she said to James. "Keep working. They need to believe we're still struggling to understand their basic systems." The observation deck had been modified to accommodate Vextari biology. The atmosphere was thinner, the gravity stronger. Ambassador Vexthal towered over Elena, its crystalline exoskeleton refracting light in complex patterns that served as emotional indicators to its species. "Doctor," the ambassador's translated voice filled the room. "We are concerned about the pace of human advancement. Our models suggested your species would require decades to grasp our simpler technologies. Yet here you are, already replicating our quantum interfaces." Elena had prepared for this conversation. "We're very motivated students, Ambassador. Your generosity in sharing your knowledge has inspired us to work harder than ever." The ambassador's surface rippled with patterns that Elena had learned to recognize as skepticism. "Perhaps too hard. Some among my people suggest we have been too generous, too quickly. They fear humans might misuse our gifts." Misuse them? Elena kept her voice carefully neutral. We're following your instructions exactly. Every project is overseen by your advisors. We haven't deviated from your designs at all. That last part wasn't technically a lie. They hadn't deviated from the Vextari designs. They'd transcended them entirely, operating in spaces the aliens didn't even know to look for. Nevertheless, Vexthal continued, the Council has decided to implement additional oversight measures. Starting tomorrow, we will begin installing new monitoring systems in all human facilities using our technology. Elena felt her heart rate increase, but maintained her calm exterior. Of course, Ambassador. We understand the need for proper supervision as we learn. Back in the lab, James was already ahead of her. They're planning to upgrade their monitoring systems, he said before she could speak. Sarah sent a warning through the quantum network. They're doing the same thing on Earth. How long until the silencer is ready? James checked his calculations. A week, maybe 2. But Elena, if they install these new systems before we're done, then we'll have to work faster, she said, studying the interface. The Vextari think they're teaching us to crawl, but they don't realize we've already learned to run. More importantly, we've learned to run in directions they never imagined possible. Over the next week, Elena watched as her team pushed themselves to their limits. They worked in shifts, maintaining the appearance of struggling students whenever Vextari observers were present, then switching to their real work the moment they were alone. The quantum network they developed, hidden in the bacterial communication channels, kept them coordinated with similar efforts on Earth. The night before the new monitoring systems were scheduled to be installed, Elena stood in her private quarters, watching Jupiter's swirling storms. The gas giant had witnessed humanity's first encounter with alien life in its waters, and now it would witness either their greatest triumph or their complete subjugation. Final connections are ready. James's voice came through her personal communicator. Every modified piece of Vextari tech is linked to the network. When we activate the silencer, it will affect everything simultaneously. Elena closed her eyes, thinking of all the ways this could go wrong. The Vextari ship still orbited Earth, their weapons capable of ending human civilization in minutes. If they detected what was about to happen. Do it, she said. For a moment, nothing seemed to change. Then, across the station, across Earth, and throughout every human facility containing Vextari technology, something shifted in the quantum realm. The aliens' monitoring systems still reported everything was normal, but they were now seeing only what humans wanted them to see. The revolution wouldn't be fought with weapons or armies. It would happen in the spaces between atoms, in the quantum realm where humanity had learned to hide its true capabilities. The Vextari thought they were uplifting a primitive species, never realizing they were actually witnessing the birth of something entirely new. As Elena watched the Vextari construction crews continue their work outside the station, blissfully unaware that their technology was now compromised, she couldn't help but smile. The aliens had wanted to remake humanity in their image. Instead, humanity was about to show them just how adaptable they could be. The silent revolution had begun. The first sign that something had gone wrong came when Europa Station's quantum sensors detected a massive energy surge from the Vextari mothership. Dr. Elena Santos was reviewing bacterial growth patterns when emergency alarms blared through the station. Multiple ships breaking orbit around Jupiter, James Chen announced, his hands flying across the control interface. They're moving into attack positions. Elena felt her stomach drop. They found out. No, James said, pulling up communication intercepts they'd gathered through their modified Vextari tech. They found something else. Look at these energy readings from Earth. The data showed massive power fluctuations in every major human city. The silencer had worked too well. Humanity hadn't just hidden their advances, they'd begun to exceed Vextari capabilities in ways that were becoming impossible to conceal. Ambassador Vexthal's voice echoed through the station's speakers, no longer bothering with the pretense of diplomatic niceties. This facility is now under direct Imperial control. Resist, and we will decompress every section. You have 10 minutes to surrender. Elena looked at her team, seeing the same determination in their eyes that she felt. James, initiate Protocol Omega. Everyone else, you know what to do. They'd prepared for this possibility, but Elena had hoped they'd have more time. As her team scattered to their designated positions, she accessed the quantum network they'd built. Hidden beneath the Vextari's own communications was humanity's true technological revolution, not just copied alien tech, but a fusion of human ingenuity and the quantum principles they'd learned from Europa's bacteria. Sarah's reporting similar situations worldwide, James said, reading updates. The Vextari are simultaneously moving to seize control of all their gifted technology. They must have detected the power signatures from the new quantum cores. Elena nodded grimly. Their greatest breakthrough, stable quantum cores that could tap into zero-point energy, had been impossible to completely hide. The power output was simply too massive. How long until Protocol Omega is ready? 3 minutes. But Elena. James hesitated. If we do this, there's no going back. We'll be revealing everything. Through the station's windows, Elena could see Vextari ships taking up position around Europa Station. Their crystalline hulls sparkled in Jupiter's light, beautiful and deadly. They gave us no choice, she said. Humanity won't submit to being controlled. Not again. Not ever. The station shuddered as the first warning shot passed nearby, close enough to make the shields flare. Elena accessed her personal terminal, entering the commands that would activate their hidden defenses. 2 minutes to Protocol Omega, James announced. Vextari forces are attempting to dock. Our modified airlocks are holding them back, but they're bringing in heavy cutting equipment. Elena watched the countdown, remembering the day they discovered how to merge human technology with the quantum principles they'd observed in Europa's bacteria. The Vextari had dismissed the bacteria as primitive life forms, never imagining that their unique method of quantum communication would be the key to humanity's leap forward. 1 minute. James's voice was steady despite the increasing violence of the Vextari assault. Elena, what do you think they'll do when they realize that humanity wasn't just copying their technology? Elena managed a grim smile. That we were using it as a foundation to build something entirely new? I suppose we're about to find out. The station rocked with another impact. Through the quantum network, Elena could see similar scenes playing out across Earth and its colonies. The Vextari were moving to crush what they saw as a primitive species growing beyond its bounds. 30 seconds, James said. All stations reporting ready. Sarah says Earth's quantum cores are synchronized. Elena took a deep breath. Everything humanity had worked for in secret was about to be revealed. The Vextari thought they were dealing with student copying their master's work. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. 10 seconds. The station's outer doors began to glow as Vextari cutting beams tried to force entry. Elena could hear the screech of metal under stress. 5 seconds. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut throughout the station, sealing off sections according to their prepared evacuation plan. 3, 2, 1. Execute Protocol Omega, Elena commanded. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, throughout the solar system, every piece of modified Vextari technology activated simultaneously. But they didn't just power up, they transformed. The quantum cores humans had developed didn't just tap into zero-point energy, they reshaped local space-time itself. Every human facility, from Europa Station to the smallest research outpost, suddenly existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Through the windows, Elena watched as the Vextari ships cutting beams passed harmlessly through the station's hull, their weapons unable to affect something that wasn't entirely present in normal spacetime. Protocol Omega successful, James reported, his voice filled with awe. All facilities reporting successful transition. The Vextari, their sensors can't lock onto us. As far as their technology is concerned, we're everywhere and nowhere at once. Elena activated the station's external communications, broadcasting on all frequencies the Vextari used. Ambassador Vexthal, I suggest you order your forces to stand down. As you can see, humanity has moved beyond simple replication of your technology. We're now operating on principles your species hasn't even discovered yet. The response came in the form of increased weapons fire, all of which passed harmlessly through the quantum-shifted station. They're not going to stop, James said quietly. Their entire empire is built on the assumption of their technological superiority. What we've done, it challenges everything they believe. Elena nodded. Then it's time for Phase 2. Signal Earth, tell them to activate the quantum gates. If the Vextari won't listen to reason, we'll show them just how far humanity has come. As James transmitted the orders, Elena watched Jupiter's storm swirl beneath them. Humanity had just revealed its greatest advancement, the ability to exist partially outside normal spacetime. But that was just the beginning. The real question was, how would the Vextari react when they realized that the primitive species they'd tried to subjugate had already surpassed them? The quantum gates activated simultaneously across Earth's solar system, tearing holes in reality that the Vextari sensors couldn't even detect. Dr. Elena Santos watched through Europa Station's quantum-shifted windows as reality rippled like water disturbed by falling rain. All gates are stable, James reported, monitoring the network of humanity's hidden technological achievements. Earth's forces are moving through them now. The Vextari still can't track them. The aliens' mighty warships hung in space, their weapons now useless against targets that existed partially outside normal spacetime. Through the quantum network, Elena could see the confusion spreading through their fleet as human ships emerged from seemingly nowhere, using principles of physics the Vextari had never imagined. They're trying to adapt their sensors, James said, studying the data streams. But they're looking in the wrong dimensions. They still don't understand what we've done. Elena nodded, because they never bothered to study the bacteria here on Europa. They saw simple organisms and dismissed them. They never asked why these bacteria could communicate instantly across any distance. The station's communications crackled as Ambassador Vexthal's voice filled the air. What have you done? This defies all known laws of physics. No, Elena replied calmly. It only defies the laws of physics as you understand them. While you were busy trying to uplift us, we were learning from life forms you considered too primitive to study. The bacteria in Europa's oceans showed us that space-time isn't as rigid as you believe. Through the quantum network, reports flooded in from across the solar system. Human ships, built in secret using hybrid technology, were emerging from quantum gates around every Vextari position. They weren't attacking, they didn't need to. The mere fact of their existence, operating on principles the Vextari couldn't understand, was enough to shake the alien certainty in their superiority. Your species. Vexthal's voice held a new emotion Elena had never heard before. You were supposed to be primitive. Your technology was centuries behind ours. You measured our progress by your standards, Elena explained. You looked for development along the paths your species had taken. But humanity has always excelled at finding unexpected solutions. We didn't just copy your technology, we reimagined it entirely. James's console beeped with new data. They're powering up their main weapons, he warned. They might not be able to hit us directly, but they could still cause massive damage to Europa itself. Elena had expected this. The Vextari Empire was built on their belief in their own superiority. When faced with evidence that challenged this belief, their first instinct was to destroy it. Ambassador, Elena broadcast, before you give that order, there's something you should see. She nodded to James, who activated their final revelation. Throughout the solar system, quantum cores began channeling zero-point energy in a new way. The space around each human facility shimmered as portions of reality itself were shifted into different quantum states. This is what we learned from those primitive bacteria, Elena explained. They didn't just communicate through quantum entanglement, they could manipulate quantum states to exist in multiple realities simultaneously. We've taken that principle and expanded it. Right now, every human facility and ship exists in several thousand quantum states at once. Impossible, Vexthal breathed. The energy requirements alone would be impossible using your technology, Elena agreed. But we're not using your technology anymore. We're using something new, a fusion of your principles with what we learned from Europa's life forms. Every attack you launch will only hit one quantum state out of thousands. You can't destroy what you can't fully perceive. The weapon's fire ceased. Through the station's windows, Elena could see the Vextari ships hanging motionless in space, their crystalline hulls reflecting Jupiter's light. The quantum cores are stable, James reported. We could maintain this state indefinitely. Earth reports all systems functioning perfectly. We did it, Elena. We actually did it. But Elena wasn't celebrating yet. She knew this moment was crucial, the point where the Vextari would either accept that their assumptions about humanity had been wrong, or... Ambassador, she said softly, your empire is built on the idea that advanced civilizations all develop along the same path, your path. But look at what humanity has achieved by thinking differently. We don't want to fight you. We want to show you that there are other ways to advance, other paths to understanding the universe. There was a long silence. Elena could imagine the chaos in the Vextari command structure as they grappled with this fundamental challenge to their worldview. Their entire society was structured around the concept of technological superiority. How would they handle discovering that a primitive species had found a different path to advancement? Finally, Vexthal spoke again. The Council, they will need to discuss this development. But first, Dr. Santos, I must ask, what else have you discovered that we haven't even imagined yet? Elena smiled. Ambassador, I think that's the first time you've asked us a question instead of giving us instructions. Maybe that's a good place to start. Dr. Elena Santos stood in Europa Station's newly quantum-shifted laboratory, studying data that shouldn't exist. The Vextari fleet had withdrawn to a respectful distance, but their transmissions had become increasingly erratic. Something wasn't right. Look at these energy readings, she said to James, who was monitoring the quantum network. They're reinforcing their ship's hulls with some kind of temporal shielding. But against what? James frowned at his displays. They've been doing the same thing across their entire empire. Sarah's latest quantum intercepts show they're fortifying every major system they control. It's like they're preparing for an invasion, Elena finished. But not from us. The realization had been building for days. The Vextari's aggressive expansion, their desperate push to control and uplift other species, it wasn't just about empire building. They were searching for allies, for any civilization that might help them face something they feared. Ambassador Vexthal is requesting to speak with you, the station's AI announced. Priority level maximum. When the ambassador's image appeared on the quantum-shifted display, Elena immediately noticed something different. The crystalline patterns of its exoskeleton were chaotic, displaying emotions she'd never seen before. Dr. Santos, Vexthal's voice carried none of its former superiority. I need to show you something. Something we've hidden from every species we've encountered. The transmission shifted, showing deep space beyond the edges of Vextari territory. At first, Elena saw nothing unusual. Then she noticed the stars, or rather, the lack of them. Those aren't natural voids, she said, understanding dawning. Something's consuming the light itself. We call them the void hunters, Vexthal explained. They emerge from dimensions we can't comprehend, consuming everything in their path. Our most advanced sciences can't even detect them until it's too late. We've been searching the galaxy for species with the potential to help us fight them. By conquering them? Elena asked sharply. By ensuring they develop along paths we understand, Vexthal admitted. We believed technological advancement had to follow certain rules, certain patterns. Your quantum manipulation abilities, they operate on principles we never imagined possible. Elena shared a look with James. The quantum network was lighting up with similar revelations being shared across human space. The Vextari weren't just conquerors, they were desperate survivors trying to prepare the galaxy for a war they didn't know how to win. How long? She asked. Based on their current trajectory? 6 Earth months before they reach the edge of our empire. Perhaps a year before they threaten your solar system. Elena accessed the quantum cores, drawing up the data they'd gathered about space-time manipulation. Ambassador, I need you to share everything you know about these void hunters. And in return, I'll show you what we've learned about existing between realities. Over the next hours, information flowed freely between species for the first time. The Vextari shared centuries of observations about the void hunters, beings that seemed to exist primarily in dimensions beyond normal space-time, reaching into our reality only to feed. Look at these patterns, James said excitedly, comparing the Void Hunters' dimensional signatures to their own quantum shifting technology. They're similar to how the Europa bacteria shift between quantum states, but on a massive scale. Which means, Elena continued, we might be able to detect them using the same principles. The bacteria don't just communicate through quantum entanglement, they can sense disturbances in the quantum field. Vexthal's crystalline patterns shifted with what Elena had learned to recognize as hope. You believe you can track these beings? Better than that, Elena said, pulling up their research on quantum cores. If we combine your understanding of temporal mechanics with our quantum manipulation technology, we might be able to force them to fully materialize in our reality. Make them fight on our terms. But we'd need to drastically expand the quantum network, James pointed out. Cover entire sectors of space with quantum cores. Then we better get started, Elena said. Ambassador, we'll need every ship, every resource both our species can spare. And we need to contact the other species in your empire, not as subjects, but as equals. Each of them might have discovered things you overlooked, just as you overlooked the possibilities in Europa's bacteria. Vexthal was silent for a moment, its crystalline surface reflecting the light of distant stars, stars that might soon vanish if they failed. You're right, of course. Our arrogance, our certainty that we knew the only path to advancement, it may have cost us dearly. Elena smiled. Then let's make up for lost time. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our ability to think differently. It's our ability to bring people together, to find strength in our differences rather than trying to enforce uniformity. As the quantum network lit up with new connections, as Vextari ships began moving to protect human facilities instead of threatening them, Elena looked out at Jupiter's eternal storms. Somewhere out there in the darkness, ancient horrors were approaching. But this time, they wouldn't find divided prey fighting among themselves. They would find something unprecedented, a union of species, each contributing their unique understanding of the universe. And at the heart of it all, the principles learned from the simplest life forms in Europa's oceans might hold the key to saving them all. The void between stars rippled as reality itself buckled under the strain. Dr. Elena Santos stood at Europa Station's quantum-shifted command center, watching as the first Void Hunter materialized in normal spacetime. The creature defied description, a mass of shifting dimensions that hurt the eyes to look at directly. Quantum core network is stable, James reported, his voice steady despite the eldritch horror appearing before them. All stations reporting ready. The trap is set. In the months since the Vextari had revealed the truth, humanity had worked tirelessly alongside their former adversaries. The quantum network now extended far beyond Earth's solar system, each core designed using principles learned from Europa's bacteria combined with Vextari temporal mechanics. The other species are in position, Ambassador Vexthal announced from its ship. Its crystalline form had been modified with human quantum technology, allowing it to exist partially out of phase like the rest of their combined fleet. Though I still find it remarkable how quickly they adapted your techniques. Elena smiled grimly. Because you finally asked them for help instead of demanding submission. Every species sees the universe differently. That's not a weakness to be corrected, it's a strength to be embraced. The Void Hunter seemed to sense the trap, its form writhing as it tried to retreat into its higher dimensions. But the quantum network had already begun its work, forcing the entity to fully manifest in normal spacetime. Now, Elena commanded. Across the defensive line, ships from a dozen different species opened fire. Each weapon was unique, shaped by the particular understanding of physics that had evolved on each world. The Void Hunter screamed in frequencies that shouldn't exist as the combined assault struck its now vulnerable form. Multiple dimensional breaches detected, James warned. More of them coming through. Elena had expected this. The Void Hunters were used to being the predators, materializing just long enough to feed before retreating to safety. Now that one of their own was trapped, they would come to aid it, exactly as planned. Secondary quantum nets activating, she announced to the fleet. Remember, we only need to hold them here for 3 minutes. The bacteria-derived sensors will do the rest. The space around Europa Station erupted with activity as more Void Hunters emerged. But each one found itself caught in the same trap, forced to fully exist in a reality they had only ever seen as a feeding ground. 2 minutes, James counted down. The quantum cores are at maximum capacity. Elena, we're detecting some kind of communication between them. They're trying to coordinate. Good, Elena said. That means they're scared. Ambassador, signal the fleet. Shift to Phase 2. The combined fleet, representing every species the Vextari had once tried to conquer, moved in perfect synchronization. Each ship activated its quantum drives in a precise sequence, creating a cascading wave of dimensional distortions. 1 minute, James announced. Quantum resonance is building. The bacteria colonies are responding. This had been Elena's greatest insight, that the bacteria in Europa's oceans hadn't developed quantum communication by accident. They had evolved it as a defense against dimensional predators similar to the Void Hunters, but on a microscopic scale. 30 seconds. The Void Hunters seemed to realize the danger too late. Their attempts to retreat grew more desperate, but the quantum net held them firmly in normal spacetime. Through the station's sensors, Elena could see the wave of quantum resonance building, amplified by millions of bacterial colonies throughout Europa's oceans. 10 seconds. 5, 3, 2, 1. The quantum resonance peaked. Every bacterial colony in Europa's oceans pulsed simultaneously, creating a dimensional shockwave that rippled through space. The Void Hunters caught in the quantum net writhed as the wave passed through them, their forms suddenly becoming solid, permanent. It worked! James shouted. They're locked into our dimension. They can't shift back. Elena watched as the combined fleet's weapons tore into the now vulnerable Void Hunters. The creatures that had terrorized the galaxy for eons were being defeated not by superior firepower or advanced technology, but by the defense mechanism of bacteria that everyone had dismissed as primitive. Dr. Santos, Vexthal's voice carried an emotion she'd never heard from a Vextari before, humility. I must ask, when did you first suspect this would work? The moment you told us about the Void Hunters, Elena replied. We'd been studying how the bacteria defended themselves against quantum-shifting predators in Europa's oceans. The principle was the same, just on a much larger scale. We just needed enough quantum cores to amplify the effect. And you needed us all working together to build them quickly enough, Vexthal realized. Not as conquerors and subjects, but as equals. The last Void Hunter fell, its form dissolving into normal matter. Already, the quantum network was detecting more dimensional disturbances at the edge of known space, more Void Hunters retreating, abandoning their hunting grounds now that their prey had learned to fight back. We never needed to be warriors, Elena said softly. We just needed to understand that strength comes in many forms, and that the smallest life forms can teach us the greatest lessons. As the combined fleet regrouped, as celebrations erupted across a dozen worlds, Elena looked down at Europa's ice-covered surface. Somewhere in those dark oceans, bacteria continued their ancient dance of quantum states, oblivious to how they had just helped save the galaxy. So what now? James asked, looking at the assembled ships of former enemies turned allies. Elena smiled. Now we learn from each other. The Void Hunters showed us that the universe is stranger and more dangerous than we imagined. But they also showed us that we're strongest when we work together, when we combine our different ways of seeing reality. Not as warriors, Vexthal added, its crystalline form glowing with new understanding. No, Elena agreed. As explorers, scientists, and most importantly, as equals. The universe has more to teach us, we just have to be humble enough to learn. The quantum network hummed with activity as ships began coordinating their return journeys. But now they carried not just their own crews, but exchange officers from other species, each learning from the others, each contributing their unique perspective to their shared future. Humanity had proven itself not through conquest or combat, but by showing the galaxy a better way forward. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, the Void Hunters retreated, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed by the lessons learned from the smallest of teachers in Europa's dark oceans.